Welcome to this retrospective slash review for the game Ristar that I just completed recently. And I'm going to go ahead and just let the game play with the demo reels in the background while I give you my thoughts on the game. And then go ahead and just jump right on into it. So I'm going to do this a little bit off the cuff. I didn't actually write down anything as far as my thoughts ahead of time. But I think I can pretty much, encapsulate everything that I think about this game pretty concisely. So this game is one of the final games that came out for the Genesis or Mega Drive, depending upon your location in the world. And it came out in 1995. So not quite at the 30-year anniversary, but we're coming up on it very soon here. I think there, may have been some other games that came out in 96 and so on, but they were pretty much a trickle of games at that point. So this is definitely one of the final ones, and you can definitely tell from a visual perspective that it is, they've kind of perfected the limitations of the system, basically, or saw how far they could really push things. And so it's definitely visually a very good looking game, as the background video here will attest. I actually felt like the sound was also very good. The music was good. I'm not going to say it's the best music I've heard on the Genesis, because I definitely feel like a lot of the Sonic games so far have definitely been better than this one. But I don't want to take away from the fact that I do feel like the music was also very good. Now, this is a very interesting game, for lack of a better word. It's very unique from a platforming perspective, and I would like to, acknowledge that. It's interesting because, like, on the Retro Achievements website, it actually lists Dynamite Headdy as a game that's very similar to this. And if you kind of think about it, to a certain extent, yes, they are fairly similar in the mechanics to a certain extent, because Dynamite Headdy, he throws his head out to hit enemies, whereas Ristar here, I keep wanting to call him Starfy because that one ending, but it's Ristar, excuse me. So Ristar grabs enemies and then throws himself into them to basically beat them. Now, one of the things that this, I would say, is actually a bit of a negative in this game is, yes, it's a platformer and it's got a unique control scheme, but it's missing something kind of vital to a lot of platformers, and that's power-ups. There are none. Other than, just your typical one-ups, health, and gems and whatnot, things of that nature. But as far as actual power-ups are concerned, there's really nothing here for Ristar. So that's an interesting decision on Sega's part. And speaking of which, this game is basically a singular entry. There is no other game in the Ristar series, at least to the best of my knowledge. I think he's made a couple of appearances here and there in different games, but for the most part, this is it as far as Ristar as a series is concerned, basically. So that's, I'd say a little bit on the too bad side, for lack of a better word, but because it is something that Sega could have expanded upon, they just didn't. Now, why didn't they expand on it? And this is just speculation on my part. I don't really know what the sales numbers were for this game, but because it came out so late in the Genesis lifecycle, maybe it didn't sell very well. I'm not entirely sure. It does show up on a lot of best of collections for the Genesis, so it must have been pretty decent, right? But maybe not. Maybe it just didn't really hit the sales numbers that Sega needed to justify any further exploration into this series. So yeah, there's that. I would say difficulty-wise, the game is not easy per se. There are some challenging areas in the game, and just to make sure that I am being fair to it, I did play the game again uh, via hardcore mode on my emulator. So basically, didn't use any save states at all, because when I'm doing my playthrough series, I kind of have to use save states so I can actually break things up in a nice logical manner. But with this game, there is no backup save or anything of that nature. So if you need to beat it, you got to do it all in one sitting, or at least that's how it was back in the day as well. So from that perspective, I went in there and I played this game from start to finish, and I think I did pretty decently actually doing that, and I was able to beat the game in one sitting. It did take me a little while, but I was able to beat it in one sitting. So how I had said that there was some comparisons with this game and Dynamite Headdy. So from that perspective, I would say this game is nowhere near as difficult as Dynamite Headdy was, because that game was quite challenging to me, at least. Now, it's been a while since I've played it, but it was quite challenging. It's something I haven't been able to beat without save states, whereas I was able to beat this game without save states. Having said that, I did have to use quite a bit of my continues to beat the final boss of the game, Greedy. Not nearly as much the first time I took him on, but I did have to spend quite was it two maybe three continues to beat him. I don't, I mean, I know the pattern. I mean, it's a very predictable pattern for all intents and purposes, but for some reason that last fight, it just getting the right timing down for some reason, it was a challenge to me. Planet Automaton was easily the most challenging area in the game, or at least the first area, Planet Automaton. I don't feel like the Brain Maze area was too bad, but the first area of Planet Automaton was definitely challenging. So I'm not going to say this game was super easy. Probably, I would say about a moderate difficulty level. And back to the whole no power-ups thing. Outside of the no power-ups, as far as the platforming is considered in this game, it actually does control very well. I mean, it can get a little dicey with the direction, like if you're trying to go diagonal and whatnot. But for the most part, it does control pretty well, which you would kind of expect at this point in the game, as it were, because Sega's had plenty of time to get things going. But I definitely feel like it's not as good as, say, the Sonic series. And that just kind of goes without question, really. And so when you really compare it to some of Sega's bigger games, especially on the Genesis, it is a good, passable game. Decently challenging, but not super challenging. But at the end of the day, it's also one of those games that you can really sit through in an afternoon or two, depending on how difficult you find the game, and beat it. So I think if I had bought this back in the day, I might have probably been upset if I spent $60 on it and blew through it in an afternoon, because that's probably what would have happened. Maybe I'm better at playing games now than I was back then, but I would say it is something that you can beat pretty easily. Now, the game itself is widely available on many platforms. I personally have it on Steam, but there's no challenges or achievements, to the best of my knowledge, with the Steam Mega Drive collection. So there's no real reason to play it with the Steam emulator. But I mean, outside of that, I think it's on pretty much every major console out there, and even the Nintendo Switch. If you have the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pass, you can also play the game. I wouldn't say for free, because you're paying for the expansion pass, but if you have that expansion pass, you actually have access to this game as a part of that. So that's something to keep in mind, depending on your platform of choice, for sure. But yeah, the game itself is definitely widely available and easy to come by. I think the last time I looked at it, it was like 49 cents on Steam, but that might have been on a sale. So it's probably 99 cents normally. But, you know, like most things on Steam, it goes on sale consistently. But anyway, I think that's pretty much should cover all of my thoughts as far as Ristar is concerned. It's a good game. It's a good late system game as well, a good example of a late system game. But I don't think I would put it in the same tier as, say, Sonic 2 or Sonic 3. Those games are just much better. It's a good game, but overall I'd say it's probably about an 85%. Worth your time, especially nowadays since it's so easy to come by and cheap as well. So if you just want a quick, easy, a quick, somewhat challenging platformer that's a fun time, then Ristar actually is worth it for sure. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the video game Ristar. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.